turn on the record button. All right, well, welcome to Beginners Academy, sponsored by the Panama City Amateur Radio Club. We have a presentation tonight, Getting on the Air for New and Returning Hams. I'm Greg Lane, in for KGL. Amateur radio, there's the on the air portion of amateur radio, and technician class operators will likely start with VHF, since that's where it's not all their privileges, but part of their privileges is the 2 meter band. The general class operators could start with HF or VHF, since general class has privileges on all the bands. And I really advise technicians to go ahead and upgrade to general so they can enjoy all the bands that we have for amateur radio. There are no rubber stamps for hams because hams have different backgrounds, they have different living situations, different goals. So I find as a mentor that I can't prescribe any particular solution because every ham is the chief engineer of their station, and they'll really pick their solution. We can just give some guidance. Some hams may have some challenges on getting on the air. Some folks are very good at using the internet. YouTube is a great resource, and it's a big help. But other than the internet, the Panama City Club has mentors, and who are willing to help, and that's really what Beginners Academy is all about. And another way to learn is to pair up with a new ham and figure things out together. So I've seen some examples of that with Ashley and Bots in our club. They've been exploring 2 meters and simplex and figuring it all out. So the theme of the talk here is go ahead, get on the air. Don't delay too long. Watch out for analysis paralysis. And you'll always be refining and adding to your gear. So you're never done setting up your ham gear. And your first setup will certainly be improved upon as you go along. So I'm suggesting be expedient at first and make it better later. Sometimes mic fright is the problem, but nobody in present company has mic fright. But really, the only way to get over that is to actually get on the air and get started. And it turns out that 99.9% of the folks you meet on the air will be welcoming, understanding, and helpful. It's that other 0.1%. Hopefully, you'll never come across it. Also, money can be a factor in life in general, but actually there is a lot of inexpensive gear has hit the market recently. China is getting involved with making amateur radio gear, and they're bringing the prices down. Of course, there's still plenty of expensive gear, but you don't have to spend a big pot of money to have fun in ham radio, and you don't want to, so you don't have to break the bank. And there's some options quite often your mentor or might have gear to loan to you, so that won't be a financial burden. Club members often have extra gear to sell, sometimes at a discount. Unfortunately, estate gear shows up quite frequently, and used gear is less expensive, but some of it's great and some of it isn't. So on used gear, it's good to ask your mentor their opinion on it. So we'll get a little more specific. A choice you can make is to get on 2 meters. Really everything I'm going to say applies to 70 centimeters as well. And so I'd say predominantly one of the first things hams often do is get started on VHF FM. Of course, the first inclination might be to get a HT. HT stands for handy talkie or handheld radio. And some of them from China are very inexpensive. And but one thing to know about HTs is they have limitations due to their low power, and they really come with a poor antenna. So sometimes it's a little frustrating and disappointing that you can't be heard. And that might be kind of a turnoff. So almost all of us have HTs, but if an HT is your first radio, don't let it be your last. Another choice would be to get a VHF mobile rig, which has more power. It can be used in the car or in the home, and you won't have any problem being heard or getting into the repeater with, say, 10 or more watts using a mobile radio. And so I'm getting on 2 meters. The most popular place to operate on 2 meters is the local repeater. And that's where the problem can come and frustration can come, that you have the radio, but it won't work until you get the information correct in the radio. Well, a few things to know, basics about repeaters. You need to know the frequency and the tone, and the receive frequency is usually listed for a repeater. And on 2 meters, the transmit frequency is offset by either minus 600 kilohertz or plus 600. So there's a little bit of complexity in there with the tone and the offset. And if you don't have the right values, sometimes the tone is not enabled, and you just won't be picked up on the repeater. It won't allow you to open up the squelch on the repeater. Our particular club repeater here is on 145.210 megahertz. It has a 100 hertz tone and a negative offset. The tone is subaudible, so you won't hear it. You won't know if it's there or not, but with the correct setting on your radio, it's going to put out the 100 hertz tone. And in most radios, but not all that you buy, the offset is automatic, but don't count on it because a few of them, you have to put in both frequencies.
I will tell you that from I
ahead,
got a
Ashley.
radio entity. When you have it programmed in and you key it up, and you're on the frequency and you key it up, it's going to go down and show you that offset frequency that you're on.
Right.
So all of a sudden you're thinking, wow, I'm on the wrong frequency. Well, you're not. It's showing that offset. So don't get confused about all that, because the first time I did and it showed that offset, when you keyed up from the right frequency, it's going to show you the down frequency on it.
Yeah, that's a good point, Ashley.
Right.
That's
It is.
So it will throw you off a little bit, because I'm sitting there going, wow, how come this just changed?
That's a well, let's see, I can't get on here. I'm muted.
Jim
Oh,
is
now you're
showing
good.
us
Oh, can you hear me?
HT.
Yeah, that the reason for that is the FCC rules and regulations say you must be able to monitor your transmit frequency. They don't care about the receive, but you must be able to monitor your transmit frequency somehow. And that's how the handhelds get around it. They just show it to you. Just look at it and you've monitored it.
Well, but when I guess my point is, when you're looking at it, you think you're on the right frequency, and you hit the push to talk button. Next thing you know, that frequency dropped.
Right.
Wow, that's not what I wanted.
Right.
So that's the only reason I'm bringing that up.
I should also point out the odd repeater is not, if you're in a certain section, the offset will be positive, and a different section, the offset will be negative. But the odd repeater defies that. And if you come to Kenora, Ontario, and our local repeater here, your radio will automatically tune positive. It's actually negative. It's
Good
the
point.
opposite
Yeah.
of what your
Yeah.
radio wants to do. So it takes some
Yeah.
extra work to go in and do a manual offset, which is a pain in the butt. But I don't know how many repeaters in North America will be that way, but we have one here in our town.
Yeah, Alabama has some screwy frequencies that don't match up with Florida and Georgia.
Yeah, you got to just be
Right.
cautious of that.
Well, that's why it's a good idea to check in with your club and see if your repeater has some odd programming. And in fact, one of the
Channel mode.
you have to, most people set up their memory channels for the repeaters and for simplex channels. And this can be done by hand on a radio if you go through the manual very carefully, but it's a pain. And then, so more often people use software and a programming cable, and doing it with software is better, but it's still kind of a pain, particularly if you're new to it. Many people use a free program called Chirp, which has nothing to do with birds, but Chirp is a free program that can program many different models of radio, of HTs or mobile radios, and you usually need a programming cable. But if this is a problem for you, this is a good task for your mentor to help you with. So, but yes.
I like Chirp, but the ID 5100 doesn't. So I had to have help from Greg and Frank and a bunch of other people to help me program this radio. It is really good. So there are some radios, but Chirp is a great program. I love it.
Roger. All right. Well, if you have a mobile radio and you're putting in your car, some of the newer cars, they just tend to make it harder to put in radios. The dashboard is a lot more crowded, and the car is all sealed up. But nevertheless, you can get it done, and many hams use a magnetic mount antenna because they don't have to drill a hole in the car. Unless you have a Ford F-150, a newer F-150 truck, and your magnetic mount won't stick to it. But that's just a detail.
They make a special aluminum magnet for that, I think.
I don't know. Well, anyway, Bob Plank, KK4DIV, showed me how to put a antenna that mounts under the hood, and the mount goes through the crack in the hood on the Ford, and it turned out very nice. There are other mounts besides magnetic mounts, so you'll just have to see what works for you. The cigarette plug, if you still call it that, or your auxiliary power plug, will usually do okay for a mobile installation. However, you won't find it recommended anywhere to do it that way. The recommended way is to go direct to the battery with wires, but many people, quote, get away with doing the cigarette plug. I probably wouldn't run a 65-watt radio with a cigarette plug. So you can try it and kind of monitor, see how it works. And, but it's a way out without doing a lot of wiring running around the vehicle. Now, if you want to use the mobile radio at home, you'll need a 12-volt power supply to kind of substitute for a battery. You could use a battery at home also, but it would be convenient to use a power supply. And you don't have to, but I'd suggest going ahead and getting a 12-volt power supply that can also run a HF rig. And for a HF rig, you need 22 to 25 amps. There are a lot of power supplies made in that range. Most of them will say they'll do 30 amps on peak load. And I like Elenco power supplies. This would be a good investment so that when you get an HF radio, you could also use the same power supply. Of course, at home, you'll need a 2-meter antenna. There are a lot of options for that. Getting the antenna outside is the best plan, but that can be a challenge, and it might not fit in with the HOA. If you're in a HOA community, but I found that an inside antenna will get you on the repeater. My current antenna for 2 meters is in the attic. So if you can get access to the attic, you can put an antenna up there and that will work very well. The diagram on the right is just one example you can find on the internet. It's actually usually called a Slim Jim type antenna. It's similar to a J-pole, but it's made out of TV twin lead, and it's cut a particular way, and it will give you vertical polarization. So anyway, Slim Jim, J-pole, Ashley used a J-pole in his installation. He got it outside, but
Yeah, I have it about 10. If you on a 10-foot pole, the J pole, so about 15 feet, and I'm pushing the limit.
Right. Well, Ashley's in a very RF rich environment, and but anyway, my experience, I've been able to stick an antenna on the wall, but I would avoid running 50 watts with the antenna being 2 or 3 feet from my head.
Yeah.
So I would get a little standoff distance. And also really 10 watts or 20 is more than enough to get you on the repeater. So you don't
Either
need
that or
50 watts.
a foil helmet, right?
Yeah. So be careful, but you know, if you think, well, I can't get antenna outside, I can't operate, but you may be able to use the inside antenna and operate. You can see how it goes. It may be your inside antenna causes your appliances to do funny things. So, but you'll just need to see how it works out.
We used a magnetic loop at Montgomery Hamfest inside the auditorium, and we made contacts on 20 and 40 meters with the thing about maybe 5 feet off the floor inside the building.
Right. I've had.
How many pacemakers did y'all fry?
How many what?
Pacemakers did y'all fry?
We wasn't running that much power,
Oh, okay.
about 10 watts power.
Yeah.
Just checking.
I tell you what, everybody was surprised as heck because everybody else that had radios powered up couldn't get anything inside the building. They had wires running up the poles that go up the ceiling, and one guy had like a dart with a wire on it, and he stuck it in the ceiling. They couldn't pick up anything. We were picking up stations all over the place.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I've had similar results. Another VHF antenna, which is ultra simple, is ground plane. I don't have a picture of that, but if you look up do it yourself ground plane for 2 meters, you can have one of those going with just some wire and a SO 239 connector, and it can put you in business. All right. Well, switching gears, getting started on HF. HF includes the 80 to 10 meter bands.
Yeah. Hey, can you see the mag loop in the picture I got there? It's showing my cell phone. It's over to the left.
I can't see it very well.
I can't see it very well. Let me move in a little closer. The camera doesn't want to do it, but it's right. It's right. Where's my finger? Uh-oh. I lost the picture. Anyway, I was going to show you a picture of it.
Well, since Jim is talking about a magnetic loop for HF, which is an antenna that will work to some degree inside most homes or even hotels. So that's very pertinent to operating HF in where you don't have a lot of room. You don't have much access to the outside. So anyway, HF is commonly known as the bands 80 through 10. And once you get your general class, you have access to all the bands. There are a few segments of bands that you don't have. Technicians can use 10 meters. So a technician could have a HF radio and get started on the 10 meter band if they desire. So for HF, it's a different, generally a different type of radio. It's generally more expensive. I just thought I would throw out there that if you just want to listen to HF, the software software design radios, SDRs, are very inexpensive, and you can set one of those up and listen to pretty much anything on the bands if you're waiting on your rig to come in. But nevertheless, to get on HF, you'll need to buy or borrow an HF rig. Most of them cover 160 through 6. Some rigs cover 160 through 6 plus 2 meters, 70 centimeters. Some radios even cover more. These radios will do a single sideband for phone. Actually, digital communications will use the single sideband mode usually. So they support digital modes and also CW. Your first HF antenna can be one that you have built yourself. And I really recommend building a 10-meter dipole. And one reason why is because it's so short. Who can tell me the formula, the cutting formula for a dipole antenna based on frequency and megahertz?
19 and 19?
468 divided by frequency.
Yeah.
468 divided by the frequency in megahertz.
But that's gonna wind up being 1919, right?
On 2 meters, yeah.
Yeah.
On
10 meters. Never mind. You're at 10.
on 10 meters, I think it's 6. Somebody calculated. How long would a 10-meter dipole be?
In Canada, it's half the wavelength because we're meters in the first place.
It will be
easy.
it will be 5 meters long. 5 meters long.
Yeah.
So about 15, 16 feet.
Yeah, it's about 17 feet, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
So now I'm stupid on metric and standard scales.
yeah. Well, anyway, 10-meter antenna, you can put it along your eaves. You can put it on your fence. You can put it in a nice tree. You can put it in your attic. You could put it in your house. Not all those are great places to put it, but so the higher in frequency, the shorter the antenna. And another reason to build a dipole is it's just a great lesson as far as how the antennas work, and you'll need to trim the length so that it's resonant in the part of the band you want to operate. And there are so many antennas that are based on a dipole that once you understand the dipole, it will be just a gateway to understand many more antennas like Yagis and beams and things. And it can be built out of common materials, things you can find at Home Depot. I won't go into all the details of that. Some more good news about 10 meters. It's going to be opening up. And as the solar cycle progresses that we're going into, you'll be able to communicate around the world eventually once that band gets going. So it can be a lot of fun. But you may say, I'm in a HOA and I can't do anything. So what would you say about that, Ashley?
Rule number 1, know the rules. Rule number 2, be in competition with the rules.
Flagpole antenna.
Right. Well, my answer was just be creative and see what you can do. So,
See, be in competition with the rule.
yeah.
Ever hear of a flagpole antenna?
You know what? Yeah, and flagpoles are prohibited. They made me take mine down. I had a flagpole
Really?
with a flag on it. That's all, a flagpole.
Oh, you poor thing, huh?
Well, here's what I did. I asked them if I could put up a weather station, and they said yes. Only during severe weather. Then they came back and said, let us know when stuff's happening. Okay, that opened it up. Then they said, don't attach anything to the house. Okay. Nothing is attached to the house. It's outside. I got an antenna and a weather station, and it's not attached to the house. I used metal fencing post like you would use like for barbed wire for cattle gates and PVC. And then I ran all the conduit through PVC into the house, under the garage, on the floor. Nothing is attached. I can take it all down and remove it all in 30 minutes.
They're okay with that?
Competition with the rules. They haven't called me out on it. The only thing that they said was lower it down a little bit. And I lowered it. I had to lower it a few feet. Now I'm good.
Hey, do you own the land that your property's on?
No.
I mean, or is like
No.
okay.
No,
Because
I'm in a townhouse.
Okay, it's actually a Florida statute that they have to allow you to erect a flagpole. There are certain rules that has to be under 20 feet and so forth. But if you own the property, you're putting a flagpole on, HOAs can't even stop you.
No, actually, the flagpole I had was just stuck out here in an area, but no, we don't own nothing. So, and the rule is don't attach anything to the house or to the townhome, and nothing is actually bolted to the house. So, competition with the rule.
All right.
I should probably take better pictures and show how I got it run. Nothing's changed. I haven't moved anything, but I don't think those pictures are very good. I should probably take some new ones.
Well, we wouldn't want you to get kicked out of your home or out of your or incur penalties and fines, but you can be creative and see what you can do.
Competition with the rule. Know what the rules
Competition
are.
with the rules.
Know what the rules are. Don't break the rule, but push the envelope a little bit.
Right.
That's what I do.
Okay, here you go. Here's what you do. You get a screwdriver antenna, you mount it on your car, and you run the coax into the house.
There you go.
There you go.
That sounds like too much work.
My HOA specifically prohibits TV antennas and satellite dishes, which is actually now illegal. FCC says the HOAs can't stop you from that. However, it does not say anything about ham radio antennas. It specifies specifically no TV antennas. So
See?
at least
competition with the rule.
Well,
competition with the rules. I'm
yeah.
actually in the clear.
The rule may be your wife, so be aware.
Yeah, she was the primary driver in what I have for an antenna.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I understand the no attachment to the house because it's their property. It's a townhouse. It's their outside building and all that stuff. And I get it. So PVC, and I got some fence posting that I put in the ground and I clamped to it to secure. When Hurricane Sally came blowing through and hit Pensacola, we took a lot of wind here on the beach. Matter of fact, our road right here flooded. We took a lot of, and that antenna held on. So I figured I'm good for, 67 mile an hour winds. If it gets worse than that, I'm going to take it down and bring it inside. But that antenna, that weather station are right there, and they're doing a good job, and they're not attached. They're freestanding, supported.
Right.
So I'm happy with it, and nobody's called me out other than having to lower the antenna down a little bit, the J-pole. I'm good.
Awesome. It's
So,
a great success story, Ashley.
It is, and I will.
Yeah.
And actually, the other side of this is the story is when I had the cute small radio in here, I had trouble hitting the club repeater. I got this 5100, not a problem.
Right.
And I want to give our old friend Phil, he's the one that told me to do it, and he told me how to do it, and he was my mentor on that, and I can't thank him enough.
Right.
So
We're really going to miss him.
There are some types of antennas for.
And all around good guy. So, yep. I just have a couple other notes that our club, our clubhouse at the Panama City Amateur Radio Club has a full complement of HF gear that you can try out. You would need to see our officers. The situation is a little bit different since we have the COVID problem, but eventually we should be able to get back in there. Also, field days. There's a lot of us that drag all our equipment out and get on the air for 24 hours. So it's a great opportunity to see everything about ham radio, a lot of things about ham radio, and you can see HF really in action and hear contacts coming in all over the country. So it's a lot of fun. It's in June, and there's also a winter field day in January. So the presentation tonight, the bottom line is get on the air any which way you can and have fun and make friends in amateur radio. And we would be glad to drill down on specifics that I didn't go into in other Beginner Academy talks. But always on Zoom or any club meeting, if you have a question, just ask. And about every other Zoom meeting is just an open forum, and it's a great time to ask questions. So at this point, I'll ask, are there any questions from our hams tonight about getting on the air? All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for your attention, and hopefully we can reuse this presentation at points when, because new hams are coming in all the time. So thank you very much.
All right.
Have you stopped recording yet?
I'm trying.